We should be now live on YouTube. That's right. Click on there. And we should now also be live on Mixer. With any luck. On Mixer. Hey, we're live. And Windows decided to let me know. Thanks, Windows.
Oh, someone got a haircut.
Oh, yeah. It happened.
It happens.
I was so close. I was like, should I just not this year? Should I just let it
Get a
grow?
haircut.
See how long it can go.
Some people saw the photo I posted of myself.
Kylo Ren hair, yeah.
Yeah, from 10 years ago, my Kylo Ren hair. that was literally me just like, I gave up basically on getting haircuts.
The problem is my hair doesn't flow. It just sort of gets messy the longer it is. So
Yeah.
can't do it. Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in just a minute.
Yeah, let me authenticate my account. Ugh, Jesus. I need a secretary just to 2FA all my stuff.
I know this is a controversial opinion, but I actually hate two-factor authentication and would be happy if it didn't exist.
No, you know what, you don't hate it. You hate the methodology behind it. You know why it sucks? It's because not everybody's using bio authentication.
That's
Windows
true.
Phone.
That's actually very true. Yeah.
Yeah, because if we could just
annoying right now. I don't like it.
yeah, having to do the digits thing is super frustrating.
Yeah.
But if you could just look at it and it's just like, oh yeah, that's you.
You're right, because the Microsoft websites have Windows Hello now, and that's amazing. Keep doing that.
Let me shrink this down. So much going on. All right, I am going to send out the tweets. You are mentioned, so enjoy your ding.
Thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3.
I didn't. Did I not get mentioned? Oh, there we are.
No, I don't want to open that. Thank you.
I should probably open up to do. I have 65,000 things open on my computer. Luckily, it's a 32-inch. Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk about that, too, just at some point.
What is it?
The NV32.
NV32. There's so much to talk about, Dan.
I know.
We have an hour. Actually, I'm going to get rid of that one because... hi, everyone. Oh, I need a voice boost. Maybe I'll just sit close to the mic. Oh, it's a bit quiet. How about now? It'll have to do. All right, I'm ready to go when you are, Dan.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. Alexa, screen off. That would be annoying in the background. Yeah, I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 161 for January 10th, 2019. Hey everyone, Dan Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast, where we talk all things technology, usually around the idea of Microsoft and its OEM partners and Windows 10 and new hardware and Xbox and all that good stuff. This week is sort of a CES recap. You know, technically CES is still going on as we're recording this, but I flew home this morning, got in at 7 a.m. I am super exhausted, so I did get to nap a little bit, but yeah, it's going to be a fun episode for me. I'm feeling a little delirious. I'm at that point where I have random songs stuck in my head. They're just playing on loop. And I don't know why that happens. Today it's the Misfits, Hybrid Moments. If you're not familiar with the Misfits, go listen to Hybrid Moments. It's a very catchy tune, and it's just endlessly playing in my head. But I'll try to focus on talking about new devices and things that happened this week. So real briefly, the rundown of the show, we're going to talk about, of course, the Lenovo X1 Foldable, or X1 Fold as it's called. It's been kind of previously announced, but now it's announced as in it is coming in 2020. We'll go through that. I had there will be a video of me playing with this thing. I don't know what's going on with our editors there, but there's a video of me. And I did interview some of the people who worked on this, and I actually spent a few hours with this device and learned a lot about it. So you're going to hear on this podcast a lot of stuff you don't know about it, a lot of insight and experience with it, and we'll put it all into context. It should be really cool. We'll also pivot to Dell's foldables. These were concept devices, and I want to talk about what that means and why that means that. And we'll talk about the experiences there and what those were. We'll also talk about the Dell XPS 13, the 2020 edition. They did change the model number again. I forgot to ask them why, but this device is totally jaw-dropping. I'll explain why. If you haven't seen the images, just go look it up and you'll kind of understand. Possibly one of the best laptops that will be out for this year. We'll talk about Lenovo's ThinkBook Plus, which was just one of the most innovative devices I saw this year, besides ones that fold. Miscellaneous CES stuff, Xbox Series X ports. That was a brief story. And if I can squeeze in, we'll talk a little bit about the HP Envy 32 all-in-one, which my review went up this week for that. I'm using it right now. I think it's one of the most interesting all-in-one devices that have ever been created for PCs for a number of reasons. And it is definitely the most powerful all-in-one you can buy right now, even beating the iMac 27, which is what it goes up against, all for the same price. Whew. My voice sounds a little rough. It's because I've been breathing Las Vegas dry air for the week.
Partying every night.
Try not to. I did go to a party, but I'm not a social guy. But sometimes I need to take one for the team and do it for the job. Zach, how are you doing this week? How was CES watching it from afar?
Oh, it was great. CES is always more fun when you're not there, I find. It's always cool seeing all the devices from the comfort of your own home, because you don't have to endure the Vegas heat and whatever else is going on in Vegas this time of year.
Oh, someone caught me. I did do the date wrong.
So, you did? Did you say 2019?
January 20th, 2020. There you go. That's your first mess up of 2020. Sorry about that. Hopefully you're not driving right now and you didn't crash into a wall because you did I just lose a year? What happened? My apologies. I'll fix that next time.
Anyway, shall we get started with the topics? The Lenovo X1 Foldable. This is one of the most interesting devices, I think, coming out of CES this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we saw this over the summer. It was a huge surprise when Lenovo showed it to us. And at the time I said, a lot of people were like, yeah, but typing on it is going to be terrible. Who wants to type on a screen as a clamshell? And I just kept going,
oh no.
We were shown things we can't talk about yet. So I saw the keyboard. It was a prototype back in, I think it was June, July, something like that, when this was first shown off. So we actually saw a lot of this stuff. The kickstand, we saw the hinge, but we couldn't talk about it and we couldn't show it. That was the deal. So I knew for a while when a lot of people were talking about some of the shortcomings of this device or what they thought, I was just like, just wait and see. It gets better. And this week, Lenovo, pulled the wraps off. This is the near final version of it. And it's coming out in mid-2020, so summertime, if at least in North America. So June, July timeframe we're looking at. One of the big news is it's shipping with Windows 10 Pro initially. And part of that's because, we'll talk about that in a second. And it will ship with Windows 10 X when that comes out, which we're probably not expecting in December 2020.
Right. Yeah.
I think Microsoft's going to really push. Microsoft has a holiday 2020 for its own Surface Neo. And so, Zach, you want to speak to that a little bit? But I would expect them to really go right up into the December timeframe.
Yeah. So at least as of right now, and this might change. It's very possible that this will change depending on how far along they are internally. But Windows 10 X, I hear, is supposed to be done around about June, July. But obviously, when it's done, that doesn't mean it's going to start shipping immediately. Once it's done, then they're going to patch it up, patch up the RTM version, continue testing that internally, and then hopefully by the fall, like November, December time, that's when they expect to start shipping devices with Windows 10 X, and the Surface Neo will be the first, if not one of the first devices to ship with that operating system. I'm assuming Lenovo will be right up there, maybe even the same day, maybe along a few days after or a few weeks after the Neo, but November, December is when we should start expecting Windows 10 X devices to ship, which is sort of understandable because the Lenovo is shipping in the summer, as you mentioned, Dan, which means it can't ship with Windows 10X, and as such, it has a version with Windows 10 Pro installed.
So let's talk about that first, because that's the elephant in the room. Why are they shipping with Windows 10 Pro? Is this because they have no faith in Windows 10X? No. So actually, Lenovo has quite a few reasons for this, and I think they all make sense. So this is some of the insight stuff I was talking about. All right, so number one here, it's a ThinkPad Fold, right? ThinkPad X1 Fold. The ThinkPad brand is enterprise, it's business, right? So this is a business, device for. Basically, they're looking at, and for the market, it's early adopters, obviously. They flat out said that. People who are on the cutting edge of technology, but also they envision like CEOs and people who travel who need like a small foldable computer. So because it's an enterprise device, shipping with Windows 10 Pro actually makes sense because of remote device management and the familiarity of putting this on an existing IT framework and network. It's all there. A side, footnote to that is also this idea that this is a radically new hardware form factor. You combine that with a radically new, I wouldn't say radically new, but a new operating system, new-ish operating system. At its core, it's the same, but the UI is going to be, for Windows 10X. You put those two things together, you get a lot of like stuff that's new going on. And, the business consumer environment is actually quite conservative when it comes to this. And so you may have people like, this isn't the Windows I know, or what's going on here. So this is one way to go like, here, we'll give you some radically new hardware, but the OS is exactly what you know. It's no different than your current laptop. If you think about the CEO, the guy who's not into tech, but kind of wants this thing, he's going to be, oh, I know where all my stuff is. This is, okay, I know how this works. So there's that reason too. There's also just the obvious one here, which is Lenovo gets to be first. Yes, that's a thing, right? I mean, companies, they're going to be the first to market with a foldable display PC. And they can only do that by shipping with Windows 10 Pro. So instead of waiting for Windows 10X, they get ahead of even Microsoft on this. There's another reason too. They get this out in environment. It's not going to sell a ton. They know it's going to be, it's $2,500. By the way, people are asking if you could show images of it. I don't know if you can split the podcast, but while I'm talking here, but yeah, $2,500 for this thing. It's super expensive. They don't expect there are going to be lines out the door at Best Buy of people trying to buy this, right? But they get to get it in people's hands and get feedback on it and tweak it and all this kind of stuff. And that is super important. I was told, specifically that the Yoga Book, and if you go back and look at it, there's two. There's a Yoga Book and Yoga Book 2. These were the really thin, foldable, dual screen PCs. Basically, one had like an LED keyboard, and the other one was e-ink keyboard. And it was they weren't physical, but they were still cool because that e-ink, you could ink on it and do all sorts of neat stuff. I reviewed kind of both of them, or you reviewed one too, actually. And they were cool devices, but they're very much concept devices that went to market. And again, Lenovo wasn't like, oh, this is going to sell thousands or a ton of these things, but they got so much valuable data, they said, from just having it out there in the market. For instance, they learned people really did not care for on-screen keyboards. They really needed a physical solution. And it's one of the first things you see with the new X1 Fold is this keyboard attachment that goes onto it. But in terms of battery life and everything, they learned a lot. So having this first to market gives them that opportunity. Now let's talk about the X1 Fold specifically. Oh, did you want to add anything?
Just real quick, a few people are asking in the chat. So how does the Fold work if it's not running Windows 10X? So Lenovo has said that they have worked on their own software that will sort of manually move things around on the existing version of Windows 10. So this will be third-party software that's pre-installed on the device, built by Lenovo, that will, adjust windows and move things about when you're using the folding technique. So it won't be as fluid or as seamless as it would be if it was Windows 10X, but the functionality should still be there through Lenovo's own software.
How that works is, and by the way, Lenovo, like other OEMs like Dell and HP, have a long history and tweaking Windows. So how that works is in the taskbar, there's a little icon that sits there, and it's really simple. You tap it, and it shows like a screen, like a little, there'll be like a full screen and then one with a split 1-2. Just sort of like how you picked a display manager in Windows settings, and you pick one of those, and it basically will split the screen in two and allow you to snap apps quickly and full screen. So there are solutions there
Yeah.
for this.
Now, it won't be as seamless or as
Right.
as fluid as, like I said, Windows 10X. A lot of people are saying, yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be that fun to use, and it is. It'll be a very manual experience with Windows 10 Pro. But I think for most business users, that's more than fine. Remember, this is a device aimed at the sort of enterprise right now, and people buying this version will likely be enterprise customers, so they're not too bothered about it looking nice or feeling fluid and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean, I did get to use it, try it out, and honestly, it's pretty good. So this is running an Intel, well, it's Intel Lakefield. They won't
Yeah.
say that publicly, but it's a Lakefield processor. It felt very fast to me. It has a 50 watt hour battery. I want to point that out because that's actually really impressive. Some people are like, oh, it's kind of thick. It's actually not a thick device, by the way. When you fold it, it feels exactly like a nice book
Yeah.
in terms of weight and its feel. I mean, it's a 1-to-1 thing. So unless you find a book heavy or thick. And it's not like an encyclopedia book, right? This is like a nice little novel book.
Now,
It feels,
it is thick compared to the Surface Neo, but that's because they're kind
Sure.
of different devices. A foldable screen
But
requires way more room for it to be a thing, right? Compared to...
yeah, but Surface Neo, I mean, sorry. Oh, the Neo, yeah, definitely. But like we look at the Surface Pro X, the Surface Pro
Yeah.
X has like a 36 watt hour battery. This has a 50 watt hour
Oh,
battery.
wow. Okay, that's pretty impressive.
They put like a nice battery in this thing. Like it should really be all day battery life. And that's good too, because there will be options for 4G and even 5G. And that's important. So let's step back a second. This device has been in development for over 4 years at Lenovo. And I want to point that out because what you're seeing, and if you buy this, it's a first gen product, right? It's the first of its kind. Internally, this is like their fourth or fifth version, which is why there's so much polish to this thing. And I legitimately say that. Like, even the leatherette cover that's on the outside is part of the hinge mechanism. So when you open it up, that coverette slides over the entire back. And that's also where you hook the pen on. So the pen goes, when it's closed, the pen is more on the lid and not the edge of the device. And it's like hooked on it. It's not magnetic. But it's like more on the front cover of the device, which is better so it can't get caught in your bag and stuff like that. But when you open it up, that now actually slides to the edge of the device so you can see it and grab it without having to look behind the device. There's like so much of this like little intrinsic stuff that they did to it that just makes it just super nice. And when you're carrying it, like I said, it really feels like a book in your hand. It will have a Windows Hello camera. This wasn't really talked about or shown off, but it will. The front-facing camera will be by authentication, so you just look at it, it opens. It's a 13-inch display. It's a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's fast. It's fluid. There's almost no crease to it, and the reason because of that, when it opens, what it's actually doing is it's actually pulling the screen out and like basically stretching it, and because of that, you don't get a crease. Now, one of the things, because it's a ThinkPad isn't just a brand name for business devices. ThinkPads, by their definition, to get that label, need to be durable. They get drop tested and basically beat down and stuff. And this device meets that. So I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but it's delicate. It's like,
Yeah.
let me tell you, first of all, the outer display gets a rating of 6H, right? That's the hardness rating of it. So it's already 6H. But what they did is they put behind the display carbon fiber panels that absorb impact. The reason they did this is so when you're inking on the device and you're pressing down, it's not soft. It's going to be hard. So you're not going to dent or damage the display. They said it's, I believe, good for 300,000 folds, and it should last between 3 to 5 years. That's like what they're looking at for length of this device.
I really find this interesting because a year ago, at this, we were complaining about, or maybe not a year ago, 9 months, 8 months ago, we were sort of complaining about the Galaxy Fold and how durable that is because the screen was breaking and whatnot. Just within like the last 12 months, foldable screens have come so far. Now Lenovo was touting, like telling press to no, push on the screen, try and break it. You won't. You know, we're already just a year and we're already that far ahead when it comes to foldable screens. The crease is almost gone as well, like you said, down on this foldable, the Lenovo, the crease is almost non-existent now. And this is progress within the last 12 months. People have been saying like foldables are never going to catch on. There's too many issues with them. It's like no, but what you're seeing is Gen 1. This is going to improve over the next half a decade to the point where at some point this won't even be any different from a normal screen.
And this is different tech than what Samsung did. Samsung
Which
is
is
using
also
a
important because there's so many different ways to do a foldable screen.
Samsung is using a Samsung display. This is LG display. It's different, and more importantly, that curved area. So the main issue that we had on the Samsung was the curved area where the binder was basically was exposed and things were getting underneath it. Lenovo never had that. They never had that problem. So when I mean, they were following the Samsung stuff like anybody else. So two things there. Obviously, when they saw it, they're like, "Oh, good. We didn't do that design. We didn't implement ours that way." So they were avoided it. Two, do you really not think Lenovo didn't go and buy a bunch of X1 folds and just rip them apart, dissect them? By the time the X1 fold hits market compared to Samsung fold, it'll be over a year since that. And like they've already solved a lot of those problems, and now they had an extra year to even, work on it more. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but Lenovo is saying like they put stuff in the screen and then closed it, basically, whether it's like pens, they said potato chips, stuff that was just in your bag. They put that all in there and then closed it and like tested it that way. And it'll hold up. So it's supposed to be a really durable screen. So, I mean, of course, as people say, time will tell, but this is, I just want to get that very clear. I know it's first gen for us, but internally, they've been working on this for so long, it's not first gen. And we'll compare and contrast with Dell's concept devices, which very, very, very much are first gen. So like when I got to hold that, there's a video of me now kind of going around where I almost break it.
Yeah, like what was that about? Did you break it? Did they say you broke it or?
I don't know. I put it down and walked away. So I can tell you the story behind this. So the reason is, and this is some insider baseball stuff, but it's really good. The technology is LG that Lenovo is using. They've been working with them for over 3 years on this display part and honing it and improving it. And, all of this was about parts coming together, including Intel Lakefield processor. As this device was being developed, they were using all sorts of core processors in there, but they overheat, they're expensive, the battery life. But they told Intel, like, we kind of need these specs in a chip. And Intel was like, we can have that in like 2 to 3 years. And there you go. So that's why this is all kind of coming together. And then, of course, Microsoft has the operating system aspect. But you have all those kind of parts coming together. And now I forgot what I was going to say. What was the question you had?
What was the question I had? I was just talking about the break. I don't remember either.
Man, this is what happens when my brain gets scrambled. It's all that comes together and supposed to create a really nice device. I don't know. So Dell's prototype LG screen. I got it. Back on track, Dan. So Lenovo's been working with LG for years on this technology and these concepts and solving all these problems. Dell, from what I understand, just got the license agreement with LG over the summertime.
Oh, right. So this is like less than a year's worth of work.
Right. So they literally got the screen tech and now have to build the hardware around it and kind of have to go through that process that Lenovo has been working on for 4 years.
Yeah.
What you saw at their CES event was 6 months of use, basically, in development. And listen, I picked it up and I use it. That's what that cracking is. Yeah, this is, and it's not too bad, right? I mean, don't forget, Dell's like, it's a concept device. Yeah. Dell's not like, this is coming out in 3 months.
These won't be on sale anytime soon, if ever.
No, I wouldn't expect Dell's maybe not until early 2021.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably launch it with 10X. So I don't want to be harsh on them because they probably shouldn't let media hold the devices because of this. This is why. It's working, it's there, but they got to solve a lot of these problems that Lenovo's had the literally years to work on and think about. And that's what's really neat about all this stuff too, is I think like in terms of technology, we're definitely used to this idea of like, here's this brand new thing you put on the market and like it has all sorts of issues and you go back to the drawing board. This is a little bit different. The run-up time internally for the development of this stuff is much longer than we've ever seen. Like, I don't even think Surface Pro, the original one, was in development for 4 years before it hit the market. Like, I don't know what. I'd be
surprised if it was.
Yeah, I would too. And so, like, I'm not sure what that is, but we're dealing with something very different here, which is why it feels, when I got to use it, so much better. Yeah. Some other criticisms I just want to point out. The bezels. Everybody's like, oh, the bezels are
Oh
so
God.
thick. I spoke to the engineers. There's a couple reasons here. I'll leave it to you if you think they're good reasons. I think they're really good reasons, and I'll explain why. One, if you want to talk about display durability, having bezels that have protection around them for that screen is kind of part of that. If you wanted really thin bezels, you're going to put the display at a higher risk because you don't have as much supporting outside structure around the frame. So that's one. Two, the antennas. There's not empty space behind those bezels. It's where components go. And there are two components that are specific to this. One, it's where the 5G antennas go. And 5G is really interesting because in terms of hardware development, 5G requires a lot more antennas than 4G or even Wi-Fi does. And it's really a difficult task to build 5G compatible devices. And this is millimeter wave, I believe. So that's where the 5G antennas go. And the reason is you can't be behind metal for antennas. I think we all know that, but you have to think about it. When you have a laptop, you can't have, when they put them into the display, it's why you'll see a ceramic line sometimes, which, is a little bit distracting. A lot of companies have spent a lot of time and effort to get away from that. Even the original iPhone, if you remember, had like little notches on it. Those were for the antennas. The other thing is that keyboard, the physical keyboard that attaches to it is magnetic. So that's where the magnets go. But here's the other thing. That keyboard charges wirelessly. When you put it into the X1 Fold and you close it so you carry the keyboard with you, it doesn't stick to the back. It sticks inside so it doesn't fall out. While it's in that position, it's recharging wirelessly. And guess where those wireless chargers are? They're in the bezel.
Yeah.
You can't have that stuff behind the display and still wirelessly charge. So there's quite a few reasons why that design is. That's not saying it can't improve in the future, but right now, those are the reasons why those bezels exist. And I said this before with the Surface Duo and the Neo, because those two have bezels. When you're using this device, the last thing you're thinking about is the bezels. Like everything about it is so cool and wild. You're not like, but the bezels. I know when you just stare at a photo from afar, you just are drawn to that. But I'm telling you, it's a different experience.
Yeah, and it's not like the bezels are astronomical. They're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
They're for they're not incredibly ugly or anything. They're just bezels.
And they're even and proportional.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah, exactly. So we briefly mentioned the Dell Foldable. That was the concept Ori, right? I think they called it the Ori for the Dell Foldable.
Correct. Yeah.
There was also another concept device they showcased, which was the concept Duet. Do we know anything more about that?
Duet is a larger device, and I'll just put this out there. Lenovo will probably have a dual screen device too.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure. So that's what the Duet is. The Duet is like the Surface Neo but bigger. It's like two screens.
Yeah, I forgot the exact size of it, but yeah, it's again, and I've talked to the engineers and everything. It is. HP support assistant. Would you like to restart now or later?
Later, please.
Yeah, later, please. Watch it. It's going to shut down now. Anyway. Yeah, so it's actually way easier, no surprise, to engineer for a dual screen device than a foldable display device.
Of course.
Yeah, and so that's what you saw there. There are different pros and cons to each one. Microsoft will say dual screens is better for productivity.
Right.
I will say, but the foldable display is better for if you want to watch movies. Like, you're going to open this thing on the airplane. It's a 13-inch display, the ThinkPad, and it's a seamless thing. And they say the reason why Lenovo went with this first, this is really interesting. They have reasons behind it. They say in the office environment, for a long time, a lot of productivity people, myself included, would use dual displays. You'd have two monitors, and you stick them right next to each other, and you have the bezel in between. And that's kind of what Microsoft is doing, right? If you take that form factor, that concept, and then shrink it down to a PC, that's what dual screen PCs are about, is basically recreating that. Lenovo was right, though, to point out that one of the biggest changes we've seen in those kind of environments that people are doing, they're buying a single curved display that's really wide angle. And the reason for that is it's a seamless experience and they can manage their windows a little bit easier. Now, some people have preferences on this idea, right? Some people do prefer having two displays and are okay with that boundary. Although you'll see, everybody's been trying to make their bezels so thin on display panels that when you put 2x2 together, it's more seamless. So that's what Lenovo was saying here, that having a single display is easier to manage than having two, and that's kind of what the industry is going. Now, this thing, don't forget, has a kickstand. It holds itself up. So it's like, and then you can connect it up with a Type-C connector to keyboard, mouse. So the idea here is when you go to work, you plug this all in. It's your just full regular computer. You can use it as a book. You can use it as a tablet. You can put it into the clamshell mode, use a physical keyboard. And it's about the size, I believe it's a 9-inch keyboard. It feels very much like a Surface Go keyboard to me. And again, those bezels, right? So if they made the bezels thinner, the keyboard would have to shrink. And then the keyboard becomes suddenly uncomfortable. So there's all sorts of like weird things that come together here. But it's actually a pretty nice keyboard for typing on.
Nice. So that was actually, I think that was basically all the PC foldables at CES. There was a foldable phone by TCL, but that was a concept phone.
Right.
And that runs Android, so who cares? But yeah, overall, like I actually, 2020 is going to be an interesting year. I know we're saying 2020 will be year of the foldable, but I actually think 2021 will be year of the foldable, and 2020 is just the sort of, here we go, guys, foldables are coming. Like this year will just be the build up, and then next year will be when it actually flourishes and everyone's doing them and stuff.
Yep. And just from my experience here, the X1 folds. Like I said, what's really nice about it is just how polished it feels.
Yeah,
and it's such a cool experience.
It looks polished as well. One of the small details, like being able to have the keyboard inside the device when it's closed.
Yes.
And it look uniform is incredible. That looks really, really good. Like the Surface Neo has it, so it sticks to the outside, and that's okay. But it's like,
right,
sure. Having it on the inside, it's not going to go anywhere, and it just looks so clean when it's closed.
And it's recharging itself.
It's so cool. It's so much better than the Neo.
it reminds me, and we'll talk about this later. The HP Envy 32 All-in-One, which I'm using right now, and my review went up this week. It's not just the specs on this All-in-One that make it cool. It's how HP clearly stepped back and thought about, let's put all these parts together in a nice, elegant way based on how people use technology. Because that's always been the issue with PCs. You can like just slap hardware together and be like, here are the specs. But then the overall experience and the fluidity of that experience is lacking. And this is where Apple is very good at. And I'd argue that the Surface team has been really sort of setting the bar for in the PC world. And you've seen OEMs follow that. When I hold and use the X1 Fold, it feels like that. And that's a generally neat experience because I don't feel like I'm, they just put this together because they could. Like all the little details come together on this really nicely. Now, whether or not you find it advantageous, I don't know, and I mean you as an audience, not you, Zach. But for myself, the way I use these devices, I'm very excited about it because when I'm commuting, I'm out and about, having this kind of flexibility of this device is going to be, I think, a tremendous value.
It's great because when you're working, you have a dedicated keyboard trackpad on a 9-inch screen maybe when it's in laptop mode, and then when you want to watch a movie or play a game or something, you can fold it out, and now you've got a 13-inch screen in front of you.
And it's a really nice display. It's OLED, so it looks really
nice.
Good.
That's even cool. I mean, like that's so cool. Like a lot of people say to me, "What's the point of a foldable laptop or foldable?" This is the point of foldables. The whole point of a foldable is so you can have a bigger screen in a smaller package when you're on the go. Yep. You can fold this 13-inch screen into a 9-inch tablet-sized device, put it in your bag, carry it around all day. Then you've got that screen with you everywhere you go. That's so cool.
And it matters because when it's a 13-inch tablet, it's a nice size.
Yeah,
it's a Surface, basically.
It's almost a mini desktop.
Yep. But when you fold it in half and it's in that like kind of book mode, it's so much smaller. This thing now, it could fit in a purse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best real world example. It could fit in a woman's purse or a man bag if you have one of those. And you couldn't do that with a full tablet. Like they don't work like that. Yeah, or a laptop. And I mean, that is the benefit to that. And I'm telling you, it's kind of a big benefit. Because it can use the Kindle and be a reader and all this, and it feels like a book. You don't have to carry your Kindle around with you. So, I like the idea, though, for people who are doing email, or they're saying, people in retail or out in the field, because now they can show things off. It's a display. But then you can immediately sign a document or a contract or something like that. So, and it's going to be a rugged device. They do expect, companies to have this out in the field. It's not
Yeah.
It's not the Samsung one. I just really want to point that out. It's a rugged
Yeah.
2-in-1.
But here's the
You know,
thing:
so.
we needed the Samsung so we could get these. We needed to walk before we could run,
Yep.
and now we're at
Yep.
the running stage almost, and that's pretty cool. Now, before we move on from foldables, quick, how much is the X1 foldable, Dan? That's a lot of
$2,500.
money, Dan.
That is so, and this is actually really kind of important to point out too. So a lot of people were like, "Oh, so the Surface Neo will probably be $2,500." And
No.
we don't have any pricing on that, but from what I understand, a foldable display device is going to be more expensive than a dual screen
Yeah.
device. So that
Yeah.
should give you some sort of, context for what we're talking about, meaning there could be wiggle room for, but Surface Neo, I'd also argue, is very elegant hardware. It's
And it's
glass
also a
and metal.
Surface, so it's just a premium for the
Right.
brand, right? But if I had to guess the price, I think I've said this before. I think $2,000 for the Neo.
Could be.
I
Yeah.
think that would be the entry point for it because
1899.
18. I'm gonna go 1749.98. Thank you.
Yes, right. Let's go for the prices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. It's exciting times, and I'll keep saying this over and over again. Innovating in technology is not about giving people what they want. If you think that's where real innovation technology happens, this is why you're probably not an inventor and why I've never heard of you and you don't
And
release
you're
new
probably still
hardware.
using a Motorola Flip.
Yeah, right. Because innovation technology, that's the low bar. Oh, people want a bigger display. Let's give them a bigger display. They want thinner bezels. Let's give them thinner bezels. That's not really innovation. Innovation is giving people something they didn't know they wanted. And that's hard, and I pointed out before the iPhone when it first came out, Ballmer and me were the same on this, like, but it doesn't have a folding keyboard, or it doesn't have a full keyboard. Businesses don't want it, right? Because the idea of like typing on a screen, the virtual keyboard, seems antithetical to what we understood mobility and input methods idealistic, were to be. We were all wrong, right? We're wrong on a lot of stuff about technology. And so real technology is, if you ask people what they want and that's all you give them, you could survive. You'll be a very awesome mid-range company. But like whether it's 2-in-1s, I mean, for how many years, Zach, did we put up with people talking about adding touch in Windows 10 and how dumb it is for have that laptop?
Yeah, I forgot
Because
about
people
that.
don't want to touch their screens.
Yeah.
They don't want it. And now, yeah, even I don't touch my screen as much as a lot of people do. But people are like, does it have a touch screen? No, buy.
Yeah, I won't buy a laptop if it doesn't have a touchscreen. That's absurd. Why would you do that? It's just nice to have it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have that, you have inking, the whole 2-in-1 concept. Floppy keyboard, how can you use it in your lap? It'll never work. It's a gimmick. They'll be out of this business in 2 years. No one will buy these things. It's a flop. I mean, all of history of technology, or even like electric cars, electric cars will never catch on. It's not feasible. How are you going to charge it? Meanwhile, I have a Tesla in my garage now, right? So all technology is always about pushing boundaries, giving something you didn't think you want. So whenever I hear, that's not saying that the X1 Fold is going to be an automatic hit. I'm just saying when it comes to technology and pushing things forward, especially if you've never tried it yourself and never used it, be just, cautious on this stuff, because I've made the mistake in the past of going, that'll never work. It's stupid. And I literally had a running joke back in 2008 and 2009 when I was doing WM Experts. I called it Black Slab TM. That was the new phone design, because once the iPhone came out, everybody was doing the black slab. I called it. It was just what you see in front of me now, the black slab.
That's still the most popular design, yeah.
Yeah, because at the time we had sliders,
Yeah.
right, that went up. They had sliders from the side. We had ones with physical keyboards. We had like the Moto Q. Those were the standard devices. And I was like, oh, everybody's doing the black slab. It's dumb. Who cares? All right, if you listen to me, sorry, I was quite wrong. So that's all I'm saying about technology. We should all be embracing it, checking it out. Until you try this device yourself, just reserve judgment. And if you think foldable displays are a fad, there's not a single company I spoke to who would agree with you on that. So,
and if you still hate them, there will always be laptops with physical keyboards.
Of course,
you can go and buy.
yes.
There always will be.
Yes, yeah, we've seen quite. And if I had a takeaway from CES, I was joking around with Lenovo and Dell and all this. I'm like, I look around and I was talking to these guys. I'm like, isn't it cool? Laptops are like fun again, like PCs, like, because CES for a couple years was all phones. It was all
Oh yeah,
smartphones.
yeah.
And as a Windows Phone person, it was actually getting less and less interesting. But for all the big companies like Samsung, all that, that's where, and there wasn't a lot of laptops because laptops were kind of like hanging on. They were doing all right. This year at CES is completely different. My phone guys at Android Central and iMore, they were like kind of bored. There's not a lot going on.
Wow.
Meanwhile, in the laptop space, I mean, there's so much going on. God, Lenovo had like, I think it was like 10 laptops announced. HP's had stuff that's come out. Dell had a bunch of stuff.
Well, it's a good thing we only sent 2 people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. We probably could have used a third.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that next year. So, yeah, the PC, and the reason is something you and I have been talking about for years now. It's this idea of mobility in PCs. Uh, a device like the X1 Fold is really an interesting, especially when you throw in 4G or 5G into it, is a really interesting concept, knowing what we know about smartphones and what we know about laptops. Like, it's really those two categories merging together. Um, and you couldn't have done that years ago. None of this could have been done years ago. You didn't have Windows 10X. You didn't have Intel Lakefield. You didn't have 4G, 5G, so ubiquitous around us right now. And you definitely didn't have displays that could be folded. And so it's cool stuff. I'll also say Lenovo has more stuff coming. I don't know necessarily foldables, but their roadmap, I got a sneak peek of it, and there'll be more of this coming out in 2020. And it looks really good. I'm really, really excited about it. And if you know about things that talk about displays in the past, that should give you a hint. I've been pushing every time I meet OEMs, I'm like 16 by 10, 3 by 2. And they're finally catching on, which will
Yeah.
segue us nicely into Dell. But yeah, these companies are catching on. It's to address that real quickly, it is what I've been saying. It's about the suppliers for these displays. You can go to any display manufacturer and go, give me I don't know, a 3 by 8 screen, right? You can give any, you can do that. It's going to cost you a fortune. If you need to mass produce a device, it's very expensive. Now you've lost your competitive edge for pricing because you have to then pass it on to the consumer. Making 16 by 10 displays or 3 by 2 displays is very expensive right now. And a lot of companies and suppliers weren't set up to mass produce those. That is now finally changing. And as that continues to change, you're going to see companies do that more and more. That segues us nicely to Dell. They announced the new XPS 13. I reviewed the XPS 13 2-in-1 a few months ago. One of my favorite laptops of all 2019. I absolutely love this. Rich Woods from NeoWin was using it at CES, and him and I were talking about like what devices we were going to bring, and he was like, "I'm going to bring that one." I'm like, "Damn, now I kind of want to bring that device too." But that had a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. Dell at the time said, "Well, it makes sense because it's a tablet thing and it works better." And I was like, "Yep," and you guys nailed it, and it's awesome. Now we're seeing it in the XPS 13. So now that is going from 16 by 10 to 16 by 10, or 16 by 9 to 16 by 10. So it's now a taller screen. And again, the reason why they're doing that, something we want, it looks better, there's a lot of reasons. It's also because of supply issues. They now get to use that same display from the 2-in-1 in their XPS 13, which reduces their costs, makes production easy. So I'm just saying all this stuff comes together. The device, they got rid of the chin. It is now a perfectly symmetrical thin bezel system.
And it looks amazing.
Yeah, so I missed a Dell preview event back in December because of snow. So I didn't get to see it in person until CES. I remember our news writer, Dan Thorpe Lancaster, and I, we turned the corner and we saw it. Dude, our jaws were like, whoa. Because it is so thin and just, I mean, I've been using XPS 13 for years. I know it. I have the 2-in-1. I know it. Seeing this thing in person, holy cow, it is absolutely astonishing looking, that display. You get, it's a bigger display now, right? It's, I think, 13.5 inches, 13.4, something like that. Maybe even bigger. I don't know. But it's and they redid the keyboard too. I like this new keyboard. It has much more bounce back to it. It felt really good. Precision touchpad. They got their new speakers. They're still on the bottom angled sides, but they're the same ones that are in the 2-in-1. And they're actually good audio.
Oh, that's right. Didn't the 2-in-1 have a weird keyboard? Or like they tried something new with the 2-in-1?
Right.
Because I didn't like the 2-in-1's keyboard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember I let you try it. But I was like, just if you used it for a few days, you'd be fine with it. Yeah,
Mm.
the 2-in-1 uses a maglev design.
Right, and
This is
then
not maglev.
is it just more traditional sort of keyboard style then?
It's kind of in between it's in between maglev and the old XPS 13 keyboard.
Okay,
So the travel is good. The way it feels when it bounces back, it's hard to explain. It's just when you
sure.
press the key, it almost feels like you can feel kind of the dome underneath it and
Yeah.
how it pops back up. I really, really like the way it felt. I need to use it, of course, to get a better idea. But the good thing too is they have all these stupid thin bezels, but it still does now have a top-facing camera. That is also they brought back Windows Hello.
Yes.
Yes, there's an IR emitter there.
Amazing.
Now, I mean, HP's done this with the new Spectre, which I'm still trying to review. Yeah, everybody's doing these 2.2 millimeter itty bitty cameras with an IR thing. It's remarkable.
Are the
So
cameras good though? Is the quality good for a
they're
webcam?
okay. They're
Yeah.
okay.
Is it better than the MacBook?
Yes, yeah, I think
Okay.
it's better than a
Oh, that's
MacBook.
good
So,
then.
um, yeah, if you're interested in web cameras, the best is Surface Pro X. That's a whole
Yeah.
other level. But yeah, this device, it's the SSD is replaceable too, which is good. They didn't solder everything on, but it's got the new 10th gen stuff. Battery life is supposed to be good. It's basically the same weight, but it's a smaller. They actually shrunk the footprint even smaller on it. But because of that aspect ratio is taller, the deck is a little bit longer.
Hmm.
So below the keys where your palms rest, this is why I argue for this so much. I keep telling companies, I'm like, listen, when you do 16 by 10 or 3 by 2, your deck has to naturally be longer because the display closes over it and needs to match. And so because that's more ergonomic because your palms rest on it. This is where Lenovo screwed up with the S940, 16 by 9. The area below the keyboard is so short that when you rest your palms on it, the edge, which is sharp, digs into your palm and it can be uncomfortable for some
Yeah.
people. So this solves that. This, I think, is the only thing this laptop is missing is LTE. That's the one thing. If it had LTE, it would be.
See, Dan, there's no perfect laptop.
It's true.
Every laptop has one thing that it doesn't have that it needs to
Absolutely.
have to be perfect. Why? Why can't just the perfect laptop exist?
The Spectre X360, the new one, is phenomenal. It's also, I would say, a little bit better value than Dell because you get more for your money.
Yeah.
But it has a 16 by 9 display. It's just like,
Disgusting. Unacceptable.
yep. Yeah, I'm just like, if it had 16 by 10, it would be quite arguably the most perfect
Like
device.
before
So
it was Synaptics, they used to use Synaptics with their touchpads, which was just awful.
yes,
Finally, I'm
yeah,
glad that's gone. I'm glad
yeah,
nobody
it's
does.
gone.
What happened to
Yes.
Synaptics as a company? Are they just gone now?
Synaptics makes the hardware, even for precision touchpads.
Oh,
They make
cool.
they
Okay.
actually make the actual touchpads, and they're sold that way. They do fingerprint readers too.
Nice. Okay.
It was the drivers. It was just the fact that they were using the Synaptic drivers with Synaptic hardware
Fair enough.
versus precision drivers, which is why some people were kind of you could have back in the day hack on
The
an
precision
old
drivers,
version
yeah.
of precision drivers, and it kind of helped, but that stopped. That's not. I know a lot of people are like, just install the like. It's terrible.
Yeah.
When that hack first came out, I think it was 2016, and it was the same drivers. It's like it kind of worked then. It
Mm.
doesn't work in 2020. I'm telling you, it doesn't make the situation better. But yeah, so they finally fixed that. But yeah, everybody has they're just one flaw away from being perfect. Dell needs to add LTE. HP just needs to go 60 by 10.
Yeah.
When they do that, I'm telling you, those are going to be perfect 2-in-1 laptops or just regular laptops. But yeah, that's the XPS 13. If you guys have questions about that, we'll do Q&A, of course, after the
If
podcast.
Surface didn't exist, that would be my new laptop for 2020. I would pre-order that right now. I was actually looking at the pre-order page and I was like, if that stupid Surface Laptop 3 didn't come out, I'd have bought this.
Yeah, and I gotta tell Dell, because I'm a huge fan. It has the Arctic white woven fiber finish glass,
So
which is
nice.
just excellent. Like, they
Yeah.
order that one. I mean, if you're really hooked on having the black interior,
Sure.
go for it. But I'm telling you, it's gonna pick up grease more. It's
Yeah,
dirtier.
get the white one, then put Windows 10's light mode on, and it's just so perfect. They work.
It
It's
is
like
fantastic.
they work together like it always should have been.
Yeah. So that was great news. Quickly, ThinkBook Plus. So this was a device announced by Lenovo, and what makes this really interesting, and this is what I like about Lenovo. They put out these wild kind of crazy things, and they do it to as an experiment, right? They put it out there as an experiment to see what happens. Doesn't mean they think it's going to be an automatic hit, but who knows, right? So if you took what they learned from Yoga Book and using e-ink on that thing, which every time I talk about it, I'm like, I gotta go, I have it here, I gotta go charge it and start using it again. What they did was, this is like, I believe a 14-inch laptop, full HD display. It's nothing crazy on the specs, and they did that because I believe the price is $11.99 for this laptop, so it's not like super expensive. Yeah. It's a pretty standard. The ThinkBook line is interesting. It's a combo. It's in between ThinkPad and their consumer yogas. It kind of meets the road there for people who do work but don't need the high-end businessy stuff. So that's ThinkBook. And so it's got a full HD display, latest 10th gen processors, nice keyboard, fingerprint sensor, and the power button on the side, which was interesting. But what really made it neat is when you close the lid, the top cover has a 10.8 inch, I want to say, or 10.3 inch e-ink display built into it. And what that allows you to do, how they're describing it, is when it's closed and it's in your lap or you pull it out of your bag, that e-ink display can show you relevant information. And what's cool about e-ink, if you don't know, that's why the Kindle uses it. When it's just displaying information, it uses no power. It only uses power when it changes and refreshes. So this thing is almost no battery draw on it, which is convenient. The downside of e-ink is it's slow, right? So the refresh is, and that still exists here. But what they created some custom, like a custom mini OS. And this goes back to like these ideas. Microsoft was doing this like a decade ago. But it has a calendar and your email. And it's neat because it shows your upcoming appointments and your latest emails. It doesn't reveal any like super public information. Like you don't see the email, you just see who it's from and basically the title. And if you just kind of long press on each one for a second or two, it disappears. So you can hide it. And then when you open the lid, and so if someone sees your lid now, they can't read it. That automatically disappears. So they don't see anything. It also shows you the current weather, like calendar information and upcoming stuff. And then there's a bunch of like switches at the bottom to change things. So you can jump into a PDF reader and you can read and mark up PDFs because this supports pen and inking. You can do a note-taking app. You hit that, it'll take notes, and that does sync with OneNote, so it goes right into OneNote directly. But you could just, with your laptop closed, just pull out the pen and just start taking notes on this thing directly, which is, again, that came from the Yoga Book. There was also, I forgot what else. There's probably one more thing on there. Yeah, I forgot there was one more you could do. But yeah, there's the ebook reader and stuff like that. It's a Kindle. It runs the Kindle, so you can use it as a book thing.
See, this for me is at the point where I go, okay, I don't see the point in this. Like, I could do foldables, I could do all the other crazy stuff OEMs are doing, but just having an e-ink screen on top of the lid, I can't see the point in this one. This to me is where I draw the line.
I think it's because it's supposed to, if you think about it, it's sort of like your smartphone. It's like a glance screen.
Yeah, it's like a cover screen, but Yeah, I mean, if for weather and like upcoming calendar events, I totally see that. I see how it being useful, but I don't think it needs to be 10.8 inches. It could be like a smaller thing, and just be like.
Well, they did that because it's you can ink on it. You can
right? Yeah, and yeah, I guess. But I'd rather just ink on the actual display at that point, because obviously e-ink. If it's an e-ink screen, if you're inking on that, doesn't it?
The inking on e-ink is actually better than you would think it would be.
Oh, really?
It's actually it's pretty.
So I'm thinking about the refresh rate and.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Okay, fair enough.
And because it's 10.8 inch and it's a 14-inch laptop, you have a nice border so you can rest your palms on. It's kind of a neat device. Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be a huge hit. And there could be other ways of doing this, including, just having a smaller one that just displays information.
Just info, yeah.
But it's kind of neat, the idea of you pull out your laptop or it's just there in a meeting. You can just see stuff without having to open your laptop. It's sort of, again, the whole thing, which, I keep having to deal with when I use the Apple Watch, which is I'll be in a meeting, I'll be talking to someone, interviewing
check your
them.
Watch, yeah.
Yeah, and then I get a vibrate, and then I get a second vibrate. Like, I know something's going on. I just want to go, like, look at this while I'm talking to a person, but it just looks like you just look like a jerk, So having this, I think, is an interesting option. I'm just glad, again, Lenovo's playing around with ideas. Who knows if this works, But
yeah, I would prefer OEMs start putting just pads of wireless charging on the lid, so you can put your phone on top of it and it just wirelessly charges, just trickle charge, just to keep it topped up and stuff. I think that'd be way more useful than a cover screen. I mean, and an e-ink cover screen, in my personal opinion, of course. Like, I think Samsung is doing that with their new laptops, which they announced at some point very recently. Except it's not on the lid; it's on the touchpad. So you just put your phone on the touchpad. And since the touchpad is glass, you can wirelessly charge through it. And I think that's a pretty cool idea. The problem is, you're using your touchpad. So what's the damn point?
Yeah, I mean, but we've seen this before, right? Asus has in their some devices in their touchpad a second screen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true, yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of companies just be creative and try new things. Some will work, some will be gimmicky, some won't work as well. Some are really good ideas that just need a couple years to, develop and improve. It's exciting for me because, again, we're seeing this push in PCs that we haven't seen in years, and it's just neat to see companies kind of trying this stuff out. So, but yeah, miscellaneous CES. I did see the new Samsung laptops. Still no word on Galaxy Book S4 release. It's coming soon.
Yeah, didn't they say that it is coming now?
I'm going to say this. They're not ignoring it. When you went to the Samsung booth, they had it. And I forgot that it was a huge sign. They had they must have had 12 of them on open and display, and people could go use them. They had a huge wall of them again. So, I mean, there's no way if you went to the Samsung booth, you're like, oh, they're clearly hiding this thing. No, the thing was way out there. They're definitely boasting about it, along with their other new laptops that are coming out. I think there's production issues with Qualcomm. I think that's probably what's holding this up. It has something to do with Samsung, should we not? I think it's just production issues because it's a whole new chipset, right? And Microsoft is hogging up the Pro X. In fact, one of the reasons we didn't get a Pro X for review is because Microsoft had so few of them to give out. And there was also this issue, people were ordering them and take 3 weeks to get the Pro X. And it's probably not because the Pro X was selling so much, right? There's tight constraints there. But Galaxy Book S is still definitely coming out. I'm excited about the device. What's neat about that device is it has a full HD display versus the Pro X is basically a 2K display.
Yeah.
So it's lower resolution, but it's a Samsung panel, so it looks really, really good. And it has a larger battery in it too. And you combine that in traditional, it is a touchscreen, but you don't have inking on it. You combine all that, the battery life on that should be really, really good.
It's a really thin device as well. I remember playing with it at IFA, and I couldn't believe how thin it was. Yeah.
I feel like I could take it to my face.
Yeah. It almost felt like a prototype, like a dummy laptop, almost, right, because of how thin and light it is. But yeah, no, I would be looking forward to that if they were available outside the States, which they aren't.
Yeah, Samsung's laptop strategy is bizarre. But
stupid.
I will say, as bizarre as it is, I've seen more from them in laptop space in the last year than I have in the last couple of years. I actually own a couple of Samsung laptops.
They make really good laptops.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of their stuff. Yeah. They've always done really interesting things. But this year with the Ion is an Ion book, I think. I don't personally love them. They're nicely designed, but they're still 16 by 9. And I'm just I find them a little bit boring because they are a little bit more traditional. Whereas something like the Galaxy Book 2, which was an ARM device, which I thought it was definitely a Surface Pro clone. I'd argue there aren't enough Surface Pro clones because I really like that form factor, and I thought that device was super interesting. These are nice. I think these will appeal to more traditional laptop users. But yeah, so Samsung had a good presence there. There was the Dynabook, which was there as well. There was one company I saw that was from China, I believe. I sell budget laptops here in the U.S. I'll tweet it out later or put it on my Instagram. They had really interesting budget laptops that were more lifestyle oriented, which means they come in really wacky colors and have really, really cool designs. They really do look like, I don't know, something I can imagine I like to see HP or something do as well. Yeah. Trying to think what else was really interesting. Oh, Razer. No, Razer had the new Tomahawk, which is their enclosure, which looks like an eGPU. It's the same technology design that they use with their eGPUs. That is, has a grab handle in the back and slide rails, and you can pull off the unit. But it's built on using Intel's new NUC, which I always forget what it stands for. A NUC system is basically It's like the Mac Mini.
Yeah.
It's what the Mac Mini is for the PC world, but it's Intel, so it's a lot more flexible. The problem with this series, because so you could basically build small, little, powerful PCs and put them behind your desk, or you can do all sorts of like creative things, including business stuff, right? The problem with them was they always sucked on graphics. Why? Because Intel sucks on graphics. So they got around that this year. They created these new NUC systems that allow full PCIe connectors, and you can basically drop in a full graphics card. So Razer's new system was being showed off. It can run like a Core i7 processor, but it also was running like a RTX 2080 graphics card. And this thing, and all combined, this thing is like this like little teeny box, right? It's like, I'm looking at, I have an ATX case over here. It's maybe a quarter the size of an ATX case. And you still got the good thermals. It's got dual fans in it, and it's all kind of opens. You can drop in your own RAM and SSD into there. So there's flexibility for upgrading. This thing takes up almost no space, and you can actually like, stack them together. So for game streamers, you can actually be playing a game on one of them, and the other one could be your streaming box, which is then connected through Type-C. And because you want to offload the processing if you're doing like, high res video for streaming. So you have the second one doing that. So you can do all sorts of neat things to it. It's going to be expensive because anytime you miniaturize desktop stuff, it's expensive. But it was super cool to use. They also have new, I don't know what you call them, grip controllers for smartphones to be used with basically cloud gaming, so Project X Cloud. And so the one they're coming out with now, I think it's going to be like around $89, but it can fit on almost any smartphone. And they'll have one for iOS and Android, and it loops. You stretch it out, it goes around, connects up, and now it's like an Xbox controller for your phone. They had a Project X Cloud running there, and we got to play with that. So that's going to be really cool.
People are asking about the Concept UFO. That was also
the Concept UFO, another Dell concept device. This is a full Windows 10 system and a handheld. Imagine a Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation Vita, whatever that was. Imagine that, but running with the power of Windows 10.
And bigger.
Yeah, and bigger. And so this was running Lakefield. They, again, wouldn't say it's Lakefield, but it's Lakefield. So this is Intel's new hybrid chipset that's going to be a big deal in 2020 because it's smaller and more efficient. It's meant for mobile, really meant for mobile. But yeah, this thing had a really, I don't know the display resolution on it. It had to have been at least 2K. I mean, it's really good display. This was not like, you and I talk about the Switch all the time. The Switch is a fun device, but the specs on it are actually garbage.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Like 720p. It's made out of plastic. It just doesn't feel like, good. This felt like really nice in the hands. Had like almost like Xbox controls on it. Had like at least a 2K, really sharp, vibrant display. Running a full core type processor, running Windows 10 games at, I don't know the frames per second, but it was good. The controllers can come off, so it's like a Switch. It's just like the Nintendo Switch. You can take the controllers off. They can combine into a handheld controller, so you can just use this thing just like a Switch from afar. There's also a dock, and I have pictures of this. I didn't post it yet. There's a dock for it. It connects up to the dock, which then goes to your TV. And now you can play on a full screen TV, and you got the handheld. It's literally the Nintendo Switch concept running the power of full Windows 10 gaming, and it did it well. No, but it's a concept device, right? This isn't about to come out anytime soon. Dell put it out there to gain some attention, but also feedback. They want to see what people thought about it. I know some people criticize the design was ugly. I kind of don't care. That could be always changed, right? Yeah. It's a concept device, so they can always hone that down a bit. But I care about the functionality. And the first time there's a video of me 2 years ago saying, Microsoft, you should make a Nintendo Switch that runs Windows 10 or does Xbox games. And Dell was like, oh, we could do that. And they did do that. And so I think it's pretty wild. But yeah, no word on it if that'll come to market. So,
all right. Do you want to talk about the NV32 real quick?
I feel like I'm doing all the talking. I feel bad here. Sorry if you hate the sound of my voice. I've actually had people on YouTube tell me that. They're like, I had one guy go, I hate the sound of your voice, unsubscribed. I was just like, sorry, okay, not bye. Sorry. I don't love the sound of my voice, but
that's hard. That's sad as well, because there's nothing you can do about it.
There's nothing I can do about that. I guess I could do that. What's that Theranos,
They
that
change
company
your
that was,
voice.
yeah, where she made her voice sound deeper. I'll start doing that maybe. Is that what you folks want? Too bad it's not happening. Quickly, HP NV32 all-in-one announced on Sunday, part of CES. For HP never usually does this. HP let us have that device weeks ahead. So I got it in early December, and I've been using it ever since as my main desktop. So the review's up on Windows Central. Go check it out. Okay, why is this device interesting? Well, it's a 32-inch all-in-one PC. The display is 4K, HDR 600. First time in an all-in-one has an HDR 600 display, so it gets really bright and content looks amazing on it. It's anti-reflective, which is what I really love. I was like, guys, keep doing this, please. What it is behind the main display panel is another layer, and it basically absorbs the light, like it diffracts the light. So it's the best of both worlds. It's not a matte display where you lose contrast or clarity. It's you get all the benefits of glossy. It's just you can shine lights on it and it's not going to bounce back. It's also, I'll mispronounce this, TÜV Rheinhold certified. That's becoming a big deal now. You're seeing a lot of displays get this certification, which is basically the screen doesn't flicker. So the refresh rate is nice, and you don't get this weird pulse wave modulation, I think it's called. You don't get that. It has low blue light filter and all this. All that means when you see that certification is you should be able to stare at this thing for hours, and you won't suffer eye fatigue, and it won't damage your eyes. So that's cool. But what really makes this thing interesting is it's the first. If you heard all-in-one, you're like, oh, it's going to suck for the processor, because that's the case. All-in-ones typically use laptop chipsets in them because they're thin, and they put it all usually behind the display, and space is limited, as are thermals, as is power draw. Like if you want just a PC you just plug into the wall, you have to have the power unit for it. And anyone who builds an ATX tower knows it's like, oh, you need 300, 400, 500, 700 watts of power for these systems. But this thing is different. For the first time, it's running a 65-watt Core i7 desktop processor. So that's actually a really good processor. It actually matched up against the Core i9 laptop chip, which should give you perspective, in the Dell XPS 15. It's a very powerful chip. The other thing, though, is it has real graphics in it. You can get a GTX 1650. Okay, that's cool. But you can also do an RTX 2060, which is what I'm using. Now, these are Max-Q, but still, it's an RTX 2060. You can even go up to an RTX 2080. That's not out yet, but it will be coming out. So, like, this thing is the first all-in-one that did all of that. Has this amazing, huge display. It's non-touch, by the way. Sorry. But it does all that with the display, has real power in it. And then I didn't even talk about the audio. The audio they have like 6 speakers below. There's acoustic paneling that goes across. This thing, they literally said it's the loudest all-in-one on the planet. And I'm going to take their word for it. I set it to 75%. And I have I have it right here, my little decibel reader, which I use in reviews. And it measured was at 95 decibels. And if you don't know what that means,
It's loud.
yeah, it's that 95 decibels is between a loud truck and a jackhammer.
Yeah.
So like that should give you, and the audio had no distortion. It was just loud, clear, crisp audio.
Nice.
And so what makes this all-in-one interesting is this: a family could buy this for the whole family. Oh, you want to edit 4K video? You have enough power to do all that, because it does have a full PCIe NVMe SSD with Intel Optane memory in there. So you can do 4K video editing. You just want to write your school paper? Go ahead and do that. You want to watch a movie on it or TV? Go ahead and do that. If you want a game on it, yep, I played Destiny at full 4K and was hitting 40 frames per second. And if you know anything about video games, that means also I could drop down to like a 2K resolution and probably hit 60 frames per second. So now you can do this real gaming on this. So that means the kids can use it for game. Like the whole family can actually finally use this. And because of the speakers, it's also a full-on stereo system. And then they also did other stuff. Like, for instance, you can pair your smartphone to the computer, and I could stream Spotify to the computer and use the speaker system when the computer is off. So it's in standby mode. The display isn't on. You can still get access to those speakers.
So are the speakers essentially just like their own thing on their own like circuit and stuff?
It's just they allowed the speakers to basically stay on if connected to Bluetooth.
Is it fair
And
to call this PC a pair of speakers that also has a computer built into it?
kind of, yeah, it doesn't. But so I would say the Dell XPS 27 looks like that because you can see the speakers. You can't see the
Yeah.
speakers. It's just a really nice fabric that goes across it. But yeah, so you can use it like that, which is pretty wild. It's also funny. Sometimes I forget my phone's connected, so I'll be on the couch and I'll play like an Instagram video, and then I'll hear the speakers in the other room playing. Oh, that's right. I'm still connected. Here's the keyboard for it. I'll hold it up if you're watching this on our video.
Oh,
So it's a
nice.
wireless keyboard. It looks like they took the Spectre's keyboard and just cut it out and put it there. In fact, it's very much like that. It has angled typing. It weighs 2 pounds. It's solid as a rock, so it doesn't slide
That's
around.
nice. I
It's a
like
really
that.
good keyboard.
What's that gap at the top, along the top?
Exactly. So that gap is so you can do this with your smartphone. And if you're watching
Oh,
this,
you can stand it up. That's so cool.
and you can actually fit a tablet into that.
And
So,
it's so long, you can have multiple smartphones.
right. And it's not just a stand because this keyboard has 2 other Bluetooth channels in it. So I can pair it to my smartphone and then leave my phone there in the trough. And I can literally hit one button and it'll switch the Bluetooth to the phone. And now I can type
Oh,
on a text message
that's
or
really cool.
yeah, and use the phone and the keyboard with the phone. I hit just one button and it switches back to the PC, and you can do that with, like I said, 2 devices. In the base of this computer is a Qi wireless charger, and the base is like made out of wood and metal. It's really elegant looking, but yeah, there's a Qi wireless thing in there, and you just slide your phone in, and now you're wirelessly charging. Uh, it has Windows Hello. It has a pop-up camera. You push it up.
Nice.
5 megapixel camera, Windows Hello face recognition, very fast, and a bunch of ports on the back. I mean, this is for people who've always wanted the benefit of an all-in-one, but also wanted the power of a full desktop PC. It's remarkable. Pricing for the version we're using, 16 gigs of RAM. Actually, this may be 32. I actually forgot. This is, oh no, sorry, 32 gigs of RAM. 1 terabyte SSD with 32 gigabytes of Intel Optane, RTX 2060 Core i7 processor, and of course you get the 4K display, is $2,500. And that's actually, you can get an iMac 27, which will have a Core i5, 27-inch, no HDR, no speakers, all that will be the same $2,500. So this is a much better value, and it's this device is just excellent because I said it's not just the specs. When you use it, it really feels like they thought this out in its entirety. Every little bit of design, whether it's usually when you get an all-one, the keyboard's not good. It's a cheap throwaway plastic keyboard. Not this one. This keyboard you'll want to keep and use. It's just it all comes together really nicely. It feels like very much like they thought of modern lifestyle and how people want to use computers and put it all in this device. So that's now available. You can go get one now. Go read my review. I have a lot of photos and benchmarks and all that kind of stuff, and including thermals. You can see how hot it gets. It doesn't throttle. Like you can play games on this. It actually passes Firestrike's stress test, which runs a 20 loop test on it to see the thermals, and the processor and GPU hold up on it. So, all right, you talk for a while.
Yeah, I'll cover this last one. The Xbox Series X. So this isn't really CES stuff. We're moving on from that now. Just in time, Channel One is now hosting us, so we're talking about Xbox for about 5 minutes. Xbox Series X. For a while now, there's been a bit of mystery around how many ports it will have because Microsoft hasn't shown off the back of the console. They've only shown off the front and the sides and the top, but not the back. And that's kind of where the most interesting bits are because that's where all the ports are. And this week, AMD showcased the Xbox Series X on stage at a CES presser, and in it, briefly, the console spins around, and for a brief second, you can see the back of the box. So press people saw that one. Oh, there's the ports. Finally, we see the ports on the back, and in that render, we could see USB-C ports, 2 HDMI ports, a power port, all that good stuff. But turns out AMD wasn't using an official model of the Xbox Series X. In fact, they just pulled one from some websites where you can find 3D models and stuff. So it wasn't an official model. In fact, it was a fan-made model who was just assuming of the ports. Microsoft and AMD very quickly followed up with a statement saying, no, this isn't actually the Xbox Series X, those ports aren't correct, which is unfortunate because now we still don't know. Except we kind of do know now because we've had the chance to take a look at the back of an Xbox Series X. Now, images of this haven't leaked. People who have seen this haven't been, they've been told not to leak these images and whatnot. But Brad Sams did a sort of mock-up of it, and we've now got a 3D model of it available on WindowsCentral.com. But we've seen the ports on the back of the Xbox Series X. The ports are 2 USB-A ports, an Ethernet jack port, power port, 1 HDMI port, an unknown port, and a digital audio jack as well. So this is interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, there's only 1 HDMI port. Now that might be no news or bad news, depending on who you are. If you're just a guy or girl who uses the console or anything else, if you're just a person who uses the console as a gaming machine, then this isn't news to you. If you're somebody who uses the Xbox as a hub for all of your media, including TV, that's bad news, because that means you can no longer plug your cable box into the Xbox and have one guide and TV stuff through the Xbox. By the looks of things, Microsoft is stepping away from that idea of having the Xbox being the one hub for everything and is focusing purely on gaming. Now, if you're a gamer, that's great news. Obviously, that's where you want Microsoft focusing its efforts. However, if you're like me, who spent a lot of time setting up their entire living room around the Xbox, all of that work's going to have to be undone with the Xbox Series X because there's no HDMI import for the cable box. Now, of course, this is early days. That could change, and they may have a HDMI port by the time it ships. But as of right now, the hardware doesn't have that, and that's usually a good indication for what will be shipping later this year, which is very, very unfortunate. Maybe there'll be an accessory, or maybe the cheaper model that's rumored will have the HDMI import. We don't know. But yeah, there's also a mystery port. We don't know what it does. My assumption is it's a developer port, dev kits, or like a debug port where you can developers can plug in some kit and get readings of it whilst the console is in development and whatnot. But otherwise, everything else is sort of not surprising. I am actually quite surprised to not see USB-C on the back. It's all USB-A. For some reason, Microsoft is sticking with USB-A for this console that is expected to last the next 7 to 10 years, which I think is a huge mistake. This console should at least have 1 USB-C port somewhere on the device. And maybe it will by the time it ships, like I said, but as of right now, the current internal prototypes don't have it, which is unfortunate. But that's pretty much it for the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on some of those port stuff. I don't mind the HDMI and stuff so much.
Yeah, because I think most people, it's very obvious why they haven't included it. It's because nobody used it. I was just one of the few people who did actually buy into the whole idea that you can have the Xbox One as the one device that everything passes through. So, I use Netflix, YouTube, Amazon Video, everything, every TV thing that I do in the living room is through the Xbox.
Yeah, so do you use a cable box? Is that what's...
Yeah, like so you can use a cable box, but I don't actually use it. In the UK, and I believe Australia, and maybe some other regions, you can buy a little accessory that Microsoft makes that plugs into the Xbox, that you can plug an aerial into it or a cable, and
right.
You can do TV natively through the One Guide app. The One Guide has its own TV guide and stuff.
Gotcha.
And you can do recording, you can play and pause and rewind live TV and stuff all through the Xbox, which is what I use because I Freeview TV. I'm not paying for a cable box. I just use Freeview because we have to pay TV license anyway. So why would I pay on top of that? But that's what I've been using for the last however many years, and it's worked more or less flawlessly. And I'm going to be really, really sad if I can't do that with the Xbox Series X.
I experimented briefly with the antenna stuff. I have one laying around, but I ended up just I use Hulu. It was Hulu. Now I've switched back to Sling because of the cost, but I get pretty much all my TV through there. But and I definitely don't do cable boxes anymore.
No, yeah.
So I do feel like it saves them money, right? This really comes down to it's cost to the customer versus the return of who's going to use that feature. I know it sounds dumb. It's like, well, how much does an HDMI plug cost? But like when you get the bill of sales on these devices, every cent counts. So I think, the idea here is a lot of people are using the Xbox or kind of cord cutters. That's where the world's going. It's probably for the best. That's not saying I would still prefer it. Regarding the USB Type A, I do find it a little bit weird, although I would say the majority of the accessories still are Type A for whether it's a thumb drive but I agree that I think having the Type C, one of them would have been kind of cool, even though I don't think many of us have been able to use it for a while. Like I'm still curious about, there's rumors of them having a camera, right? A 4K camera for streaming, for gamers, that also bring Windows Hello feature. How does that connect?
Yeah,
Is that
maybe
just magic?
it's not a
Is
real
this just,
thing.
yeah, maybe it's not real.
Yeah.
In which case, if that's true, that seems like a shame and a
Or
lost
maybe it's that
opportunity.
mystery port because it is.
Or maybe it's that
It's
mystery
yeah,
port.
it's quite dominant on the back of the console. Like if they were to remove that in the final version, I don't know what they would replace it with. You know, because it's quite
Yeah.
a big port. So maybe there's an accessory or some story there that's yet to be told. And that's probably why they haven't shown the back of the box officially. Either way, yeah, I'd be really disappointed if this thing doesn't have at least one USB-C port because, like I said, you know, this is. I still see a lot of original Xbox Ones in the wild, and you know that console came out in 2013. Like if people are buying the Xbox Series X on day one, a lot of those people will be using that console for the next half a decade or even the entire decade. You know, and USB-C, if it's already pretty dominant in a lot of areas, but USB-C will definitely be the standard by the end of this decade. It's
Right.
just future proofing. Having one USB-C port would have been really nice here.
Yeah, I think the issue is sort of like what it has two USB Type A ports.
Yeah, on the back and one on the front, as far as I remember.
Yeah, so I think the idea here is like if they sacrifice one of those for a Type C, there's not a lot of stuff people will be able to put into
The
there.
box is so huge, they have space for one USB port.
Oh yeah, okay. So then it comes out to the cost thing again,
Yeah,
which I
no,
know
you're
it's
right.
dumb. It's like people are like, "Well, how much does it cost for a Type C port?" But it does matter. Yeah, I would like to see Type C as well. I'd be curious to hear the defense and the research on this, because there's probably some reasoning there, but I don't know. Anyway, the ports look all right. We'll see about the HDMI stuff. I'm more curious about accessories. I really want to see Microsoft return with like
A
this
Windows
rumored
Hello
4K
thing, yeah.
camera, Windows Hello audio, and all this kind of stuff because it's something that's sorely missing. And yet the company is they know cameras. We've seen it with the Surface Hub 2 has a 4K camera that just plugs in, and it's pretty wild. And like I feel I feel like the whole like we'll never put cameras in our house, or I don't want a camera in my living room. I feel like that era has ended as people put cameras all over their house, and
Yeah, they
we're
don't care
seemingly
that much, yeah.
having security issues from janky companies. And Microsoft's actually really good with security and all this kind of stuff. So I feel like you can actually kind of trust the company. Like it feels like that should return again. I'm not convinced we're going to do it because we want to do Skype calls from the Xbox. Maybe some of us will. I still like to have that functionality there. I think for some people it is an important one. But yeah, we'll have to kind of see. But we still got time yet. I'm sure leading up to E3, we'll get. I don't think. I mean, the rumor is, or worth thinking at least, E3 is not going to be focused on the Xbox hardware. It's going to be focused just on game announcements. And so that means we'll probably have a separate events where they go into more detail about the new Xbox before that time, maybe even after that time. So that will be kind of interesting. Yeah, I do kind of like how Microsoft's strategy for this in terms of announcements seems to have been good so far, especially since PlayStation's big announcement, from what I can gather, was the new PlayStation 5 logo, which everybody's laughing because it was literally like they just changed a 4 to a 5,
Yeah,
which is
there's no
kind of what you would
surprises.
expect.
I mean, to be fair, Sony has a very consistent naming scheme for their console, unlike Microsoft.
True. That's true too. And I think some anticipation here was that they're going to like have a new logo or a new design. And no.
No, it's the same old, same old.
Yeah. So, but that's fine. I'm not hating on Sony. Listen, I think if you're a real gamer, you just play the games where they are
Yeah.
on the device. Like
You
I
buy
think,
both or you're not a gamer.
yeah, I think hardcore gamers are like I game on PC, I game my Xbox, my PlayStation, and my Switch.
Yeah, and my
Because they all
phone
have
sometimes.
unique experiences that are kind of fun to do. I think it comes down to money. I think some people are like, I can't afford to do all that, which is totally understandable.
You're
I'm
not a
not
true
saying
gamer
it's
if you can't afford it. I'm joking.
yeah, right. You're not a true gamer unless you're can afford thousands of dollars. So I think a lot of times people get defensive because they know they can't afford like $4,000 worth of hardware
Yeah.
or even 5,000, and so they're like they just choose the one that they want to be on the team of. Which I hate to tell you, You're not anyone's team. You're just a market. You're just a
You're
consumer.
just giving some big conglomerate company lots of money.
Yeah, don't be on their team. Are you kidding me? Are they paying you? Jesus, unless you're sponsored by Xbox or Sony, you shouldn't be out there promoting them like you're on their team because you're not. I have this argument with sports
look
people.
At all of our free mascots.
Yeah. Well, it cracks me up when people watch sports and they're like, "Yeah, we're going all the way this year." Like,
you are you.
Last I checked, you're just sitting on the couch drinking a beer. Like, they're doing all the work, so they're going all the way, and you can be happy about that. But I'm just being annoying now. So if you enjoy sports, that's fine. When Conor McGregor fights next week, 2 weeks from now, I'll be like, we're gonna beat Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah, you and him together.
Yeah. See, now when you phrase it like that, it really does sound stupid, right? It sounds stupid too when you talk about your teams or your PlayStation or your gaming console wars. God, yeah. Zach and I, by the way, we always crack up at the console war people because we just totally do not get it.
Yeah.
And we say that as Windows people. Like if you
seriously,
like if you use a Mac, I'm like, cool. And people always try to goad me into stuff. They're like, yeah, well, Microsoft sucks. Mac's great. I'm like, hey, find what works for you, man. If that makes you happy, I'm actually happy for you. Find a computer that you enjoy using. It's all technology, man. It's all cool.
I love Mac users because Mac users are so quick to go, oh yeah, the only reason I use Mac is because Windows sucks. It's like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, right.
I don't say I use Windows because Mac sucks. I understand Mac is pretty good, but I just think Windows is better.
Yep. Yeah, it comes down to personal preference and freedom of choice. But we've been acknowledging for years Apple makes really nice hardware, even if they occasionally screw up their keyboards. And
well, at least they finally admitted that they were terrible.
But they didn't, though, right? They didn't.
They
just
they just pretended.
That's why they didn't have a press event. They're just like, here's our new laptop
with a magical new keyboard.
What are you talking about? That keyboard? No, we just improved the keyboard.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. Anyway, I think that should wrap us up. I think we covered everything, right?
Yep.
We'll do Q&A now with our live audiences on YouTube and Mixer.com. So start firing off those questions as I do my little spiel here at the end. If you have any questions about the X1 Foldable, the new Xbox, the Dell XPS 13 foldables, and all the other things we talked about at CES. And if you're listening to this recorded, you don't get to hear that. And I'm sorry, but it'd be really awkward just to hear us thinking and saying a couple times as we read questions. But you are definitely free to join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central. You can also find us on our YouTube channel at Windows Central there. And you can watch our goofy faces and ask us questions and participate in the chat. Remind me that it's the year 2020, not 2019, for instance. Otherwise, we can follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Also at Instagram at the same address. And you can watch me travel around the world and play with fun laptops. You can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. You can aim questions about Windows 10, Windows 10X, and all Microsoft stuff at him. And he'll be more than glad to answer those questions. And we'll try not to make fun of you. But no guarantees. Other than that, as always, thanks for listening in, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
And perfect timing, Channel 1's moving on. Sorry, the first question. Why aren't you guys talking about Windows 10X? What are you trying to hide? ?
What?
I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe there's just nothing to talk about regarding Windows 10X right now. Microsoft hasn't said anything on the subject since October, and we've basically seen everything it has to offer so far. And we've talked about it extensively in other episodes. That's why we haven't talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft has not, in terms of media, has not really done much with Windows 10X.
They've not let media touch the thing. The only reason there was a hands-on this week is because Rich Woods had the balls to ask if he could play with one of the devices, and everyone were like, yeah. And they shouldn't have said yeah.
For it. And then they got in trouble for it. Yeah. I mean, there haven't been any briefings to press. Everything we know about it still basically comes from Zach. So, like, when Microsoft is ready to do that public push, I mean, we talked to them internally about this stuff. For a long time, they didn't even know what to call it, how to refer it to. So they're still, I think, figuring that stuff out.
It's still not done, and it is quite buggy because of that reason, and therefore they don't want any public hands-on.
Right.
Which makes sense. Like they're trying to control the message. Remember, this is a new platform. They need to be very careful about, reputation and how the market sees it out the door, because first impressions mean everything. So out the door, it needs to be smooth. It needs to be fluid. It needs to work and be beautiful and all the other good stuff. Any chance would the Duo One Winston X? No.
Yeah, no.
Any news on Surface Go 2? No.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on a few podcasts. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd really like to see the new Snapdragon 7C processor be used in that device, or even the 8C. I think the 7C though, it's supposed to be priced for, I think, $300 to $500 PCs, and that's exactly what a Surface Go is. AMD, I guess, could be there too. AMD did have new mobile processors announced this week. One of them, it does actually compete directly against the Pentium Gold, which I thought was funny. It's even called, like, I forgot what it's called. It's called something Gold. They even kept the naming, the Gold and Platinum, I think. So maybe that. I would still think the Qualcomm, though, might be a better choice, but I'll leave that to Microsoft. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trialing a Surface Go 2 with both a new Qualcomm and maybe the AMD chip. From what I have heard, Microsoft had an exclusive contract or an exclusive deal with Intel to only use Intel components in their devices, probably similar to why they were only using Marvel Wi-Fi chips forever. And I think both of those have expired, which is why all of a sudden you saw AMD and finally a Qualcomm Surface device come out this year. And I think you'll continue to see more of that as Microsoft wants to, bolster the entire ecosystem, but also these companies can help better deliver on the vision that Microsoft is trying to do with these hardware.
If Microsoft and Sony intend to introduce more variations of the upcoming console generation, what's the point of future-proofing the Series X? They'd want people to be forced to update to the new hardware sooner. No? No. Microsoft has and Sony, to be honest, never in a console generation has a company forced you to update. They've always said day one's console will be supported for as long as that generation exists. The Xbox 360, the OG Xbox 360, the Xbox 360 Core, I think it was called, which didn't even have a hard drive. You can run every single Xbox 360 game that ever came out on that console, even the last ones. That they work just fine on the original Xbox 360. Same goes for Xbox One. If you bought an Xbox One in 2013, that can still play every single Xbox One game that comes out today. Not at 4K, of course, but it can still play them all. It's still fully supported. And I don't see that changing with the Series X. You buy a Series X on day one, it'll be able to play every single Series X game until that console generation is over. And there's no reason that will change. So no, Microsoft, they're not going to force you to update. Whatever you buy, you can use that for the duration of the generation.
Two things. When's the new Microsoft Edge come out? Someone pointed out January 15th. We'll have news on that shortly. We did get some clarification on that stuff. So, yep, that's still happening. And there'll be details around that. But Edge is just like Windows 10. It's just like Chrome. It's going to be forever in development. So it's never finished, technically. But it is definitely coming January 15th. Interesting news, the Public Health Authority in Ireland have to pay Microsoft $1.1 million for extended support of Windows 7. They said by 2021, they still won't be fully converted to Windows 10. Fire that IT team. Now, I mean, I don't know. Every team has to deal with their own costs and hurdles. But yeah, Windows 7 support ends January 15th. And was it the 14th, 15th? One of those. But if you're a company and you're apparently Ireland, yeah, you can actually pay Microsoft to maintain some security patchworks until you get converted. But it's a real thing. It's your companies don't like converting, man. It's a lot of work.
On what scale do you think Sony and Microsoft deliberately seed news to influence the other one's marketing and products? I don't think that happens ever or very often. I don't see why it would. It doesn't make sense. So, like, what news would they seed to influence the others' marketing and products?
So I didn't see that question. Can you repeat it again?
On what scale do you think Sony and Microsoft deliberately seed news to influence the other one's marketing and products?
I don't. Yeah.
Are you talking about leaks? I'm not sure what you mean by news.
There's this. I don't want to say it's a myth. It's definitely not a myth. This idea of like controlled leaks.
Yeah.
Like,
But like, well,
I,
I'm just trying to think, what would you leak? Because if you're leaking, if you work for Microsoft, for example, you're leaking Microsoft info. But why would that influence Sony's marketing and products?
yeah, I mean, and Zach and I have talked about this in the past, especially about controlled leaks. To our knowledge, I've never had a controlled leak. Like, I've always got, unless I'm being completely played, like this,
To be
like
fair,
don't,
I'd
you
be
never
happy
know.
to be
Your
played in
source
that
could
case.
be
Yeah, it could be
on
Satya.
news. Yeah, Zach's sourcing. They could be people like, hey, go talk to Zach purposely and
I
let him know
doubt it.
about this stuff.
I doubt it.
But if that's happening, we definitely don't know. And I'm not sure how you ever could know that. But I feel like controlled leaks you see mostly for small companies who
Yeah,
aren't well
trying to
known,
build hype. Yeah,
who are trying to build
or in
hype
politics.
or in politics. But I mean, that's how I've seen it play is like really small companies who are trying to kind of generate hype will do that. Big companies
Yeah,
literally pay people to do that for them in a
I
controlled,
I,
you know,
I fully believe Apple does controlled leaks. Like any Apple leak that I read, that's legit. I'm convinced it was all planned by Apple because Apple's secrecy is so good that there's no way that
they
wasn't
lost
planned in
their
some way.
secrecy, though, because we talked about this before with development. Microsoft has the almost like a mini factory on
Yeah,
campus
yeah,
where so everything is developed internally, so it never leaves the campus until it's going to start to go into production. They're at risk for that last month or two
hmm
because that last month or two, I think they're finally doing, but they also, I don't know, and Apple has so many suppliers
yeah.
and it's such a
You can't
well-known.
patch all those holes. It's impossible. Yeah,
And I think that it's just also a market. There was a market out there for factory workers who got like display bezels for the new iPhone to then go and sell those to leakers. Like there was that black market developed, and as far as I know, there's no financial incentive to do that for Surface devices. It's just not as popular, right? I don't think there's as much desire for it. So I think it's about
yeah. I
markets.
mean, and as well, like I can't think of anything that I've leaked recently that would have benefited Microsoft in any way for it to be a controlled leak. Like a controlled leak generally has a motive behind it to control some sort of messaging or to get something to happen internally, or anything that I've written about, I can't see how that improved things internally. Like when I wrote about Edge, which was the last like huge thing that I wrote about Edge moving to Chromium, I can't see why that would have been a controlled leak. Like Microsoft wanted to control the messaging around that because obviously that was a touchy subject. Same thing with like Windows Lite. Windows Lite sounds terrible on the surface. A light version of Windows has less features. I don't want that. They would have much preferred just to control that message without any leaks. And because now we all know Windows 10 X is Windows Lite, but Microsoft would want you to believe that Windows 10 X is just Windows 10 but with a different face, which we all know isn't true. It's very much not that. It's much more lightweight and etc. etc. So yeah, I can't think of any Microsoft leaks recently that maybe the ports leak. Maybe the ports leak was a controlled leak. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, someone says so if you don't know, it means they're doing their job right. I mean, technically that's true, I guess, but
And
that's
technically,
not.
I don't care.
Well, there's that. That's like, I mean, you would never know. But I also say, and have done this in the past. It's not like you go to a person and they give you a press release. That's not how it goes in terms of getting information out of people. And Zach could definitely speak to this. It's a process of basically pulling teeth. It's going back
It's
and forth
becoming
with the person
friends with
and trying
people.
to ask direct questions, not be too pushy.
Mm.
It's not like I've rarely had a source that goes like, here's everything you need to know, or it's usually like conversations that happen over and over and they earn your trust, and you get like a sentence here.
Yeah.
The next week you get another sentence here. You get a code word, and you have to, and then you start building up a document with all this stuff, and you get that information, and then even then you have to take that information and corroborate it. You need to find someone else who can go, yeah, that's actually kind of true, or yeah, you're, because it goes back to, I've rarely had sources that tell me everything I want to know.
Oh
I
God, that's
hear,
never happened to me.
yeah, I always hear like a bit, and then I gotta go talk to someone else and be like, well, you kind of understand. I mean, we had this problem with Neon years ago, which was this idea of
Fluent
like, hey, we
design,
heard,
yeah.
what's known as the Fluent Design System now. We were getting bits of it, but it took a couple people to sort of put into context what it actually meant. Because I believe at the time when we first heard it, it sounded like a new UI, like it was going to make a redesign of Windows.
And well, to be fair, it kind of was supposed to be before they backed down on that idea. Because if you look at the concepts internally, which I don't know if they ever leaked, but Windows was redesigned. They redesigned Windows with Fluent Design internally.
Yeah, it just some of this played into 10x and everything.
Yeah. And 10x is a Fluent, So I guess that all sort of built up to 10x, which is sort of all Fluent Design, which is nice to see.
Right, but this at that time we didn't even know about 10x really. There was no so I'm just saying, I don't know. It's a fun thing to do with this job sometimes. It happens a lot of times over drinks with a person, and you'll ask them a question. Sometimes you ask the best trick, of course, is you drop already internal knowledge that they don't think you should know, but you do know, and then they feel more comfortable already telling you more.
I love doing that. Like my favorite thing to do is just to be chatting with Microsoft East casually and just drop a code name. Just drop a code name.
It's like, so we all know Windows 10X is this and that, and they're like, what do you it's Windows. I mean, and this happens right now with the Intel. OEMs can't say, this is running a new Intel Lakefield processor, but they're like, it's a 10th gen Intel system. You're like, but it's Lakefield, right? And they kind of look at you like,
what's that? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they're like, but then they're kind of like, come on, so it's a fun thing. It's just like any industry. I think a lot of people they think they know how this all works. And it's really
it's just being friends. Just be friends with people. Be nice.
Yeah,
and they'll be nice to you. This is how you build friendships.
Someone asked, do we think Kinect will work with the Series X? I say absolutely not. I mean, Kinect is dead, as far as I understand.
Yeah, but at the same time, like if the OS is the same, which I believe it is, then I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Drivers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If the drivers are there.
But I think they may pull out the
maybe
drivers.
No, you're right. They might pull it out. You're not wrong. But if they just
because they could target 10X, right? I mean, not 10X, Series X. They could target that device.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right.
And they could pull out that stuff because we've seen that in the past. One of the reasons why they removed Cortana. Okay, you could say, well, people weren't using it and it's not available in my market, but it was also overhead. They made they're like, if we take out this thing that we're not using that much, we can get resources and make everything faster. And if Microsoft's UI changes of late have all been trying to make it even faster than what it is, and that's one way you do it.
I mean, I don't know for a fact if they actually did pull it out from the core or if they just hid it from the UI. But I like the idea because Microsoft for a very long time, when they take features away, more often than not, they're not taking it away. They're just hiding it for the user. Like for a good example of that is the old Edge. The old Edge, even though the new Edge is coming out, once the new Edge is installed on your system, the old Edge is still there. They haven't removed it from the OS. It's just hidden from the user. The user can't access it no more. And Microsoft has a habit of doing this, where they build out a feature, then nobody uses it, then they go, well, there we go, we've got to get rid of that. But because it's so baked, it's so written into the code of the OS now, if they were to rip that code out, it messes up everything else. And so they just have to just write a new thing on top of it that just hides the feature instead. But that means that whole feature is still in the operating system. The user just can't access it no more. And that's so much more resources and overhead and rubbish that and hopefully I think with Windows 10X and the Windows core stuff, that is one of the things that's changed quite a bit. Everything's modular now, so they can plug in features. And if they don't work, they can just remove them. And that isn't still in the core of the operating system anymore. That's actually gone. I'm hoping we see the same with the Series X. Because Windows has been so bad at the removal of features. Even like home groups. I'm pretty sure you can still find home groups in Windows 10, even though that's technically gone.
Right. It's just funny. I posted today on my Instagram a picture I took exactly 8 years ago. 8 years ago today, Microsoft, AT&T, and Nokia were all on stage announcing the Lumia 900 being exclusive on AT&T. There was Project Rolling Thunder was going to be the advertising campaign. And it's just one of the comments. I feel like people have PTSD. Why do you bring back painful memories? How can we convince Windows to release the Duo?
I don't understand these people.
How can we convince Windows to release? First of all, you're not convincing Windows, you're convincing Microsoft, but to release the Duo with Windows 10X OS, not Android. I don't know what to say with that. But it makes me laugh. I don't know. It's like, I'm sorry if I brought up painful memories for you. It was a phone, man. Get over it.
Yeah.
I was there. I had to cover it. I had to write all these words that now mean nothing. So
yeah. John says, I'm pretty sure Microsoft does control leaks for unreleased and unannounced products. I saw Windows Duo type stuff 2 years ago on no-name YouTube channels saying it was the Surface Phone. I've got some news for you. Those channels were talking about stuff that we wrote first.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach was the main source on all of that. That's where it started.
2016 was the first time I teased that Andromeda was a thing, guys. That's how long this damn thing's been in the works.
We can't control no-name websites not crediting us for that information, but that's exactly how it went. I guarantee you, no-name channels aren't getting exclusive leaks. I guarantee that's not how that works. Because if Microsoft's going to do a control leak, they're not. This is not Microsoft. This is not how this works, right? Because think about the logic. Like, all right, guys, let's plop this. We're going to do a controlled leak. All right, sounds good. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the new Surface Duo. All right, yeah. So who we're going to leak it to? New York Times, Wall Street Journal.
No, this guy on YouTube.
Windows Central. No. We got this guy. There's nobody on YouTube. He's got like 1,000 followers, and no one watches him. We'll put it there because that makes sense. Because people are going to watch that, and it could be like, oh my God, that's that nobody on YouTube. We should believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
Even though he has no hard proof, but he's probably right, and everybody will believe him. And then the Wall Street Journal will write it. Yeah. Like, come on, people.
That's the other problem. Like, if you're doing a controlled leak, you've got to find someone who has a reputation of being right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know, you can't just show up out of nowhere, write something, and have everybody believe you. It took me a long time to get to the point where I could write something and other websites take it seriously.
Yes, that's definitely true. Yeah. Again, I feel like a lot of the world's problems could be just solved if you just stop for a moment and think through the process and realize how weird it sounds. Like UFOs.
Yeah. UFOs.
I've been going down the rabbit hole. But side note here, I've been going down the rabbit hole watching conspiracy theory, like Above Majestic, because I don't believe in any conspiracy theories because I think humans are totally stupid and cannot keep secrets, especially about alien races invading Earth. But I love watching because I want to know how crazy people are and what they're thinking and everything like that. But that stuff is insane, by the way. It's fun, but if you believe it, I'm sorry, you're insane. I'll also say if there are aliens, I don't care. I literally do not care. Because if there are aliens, they're going to be way smarter than I'm like a rat to them. So
they might not be smarter, though. There's no guarantee that they're smarter than us.
I think they could figure out space travel. They could probably they're probably smarter than us.
Maybe.
But like it's like being a rat and be like, if you're a rat and you're like, those humans are bad. It's like, okay, what the hell are you going to do about it?
Yeah, but maybe they didn't figure out space travel. Maybe they were just on a planet that had the materials that allows for space travel. And they were like, oh, that works. You know, until we don't have. You know.
So they're like dumb space hillbillies.
Yeah, it's entire. I think it's possible.
They don't know where they're going. They just randomly show up on planets.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll
have a separate podcast on this.
Someone's asking, Dan is like, how can they claim that every Xbox One game will run on the Series X if Kinect games don't run on it? That's a good question. So maybe the Kinect will work, or that I think will happen is they will clarify before the console is up for pre-order that Kinect games won't work. Because, you know, they can say every Xbox
for the
One
10
game.
of you who play Kinect games
exactly.
still.
And
so there's
no lawsuit possibility there because no one's able to buy the thing yet. So there's no.
Starting with the 1S and then the 1X, they didn't have. I think that's what it was, right? Yeah, they didn't have the Kinect port. But then there was an adapter you can buy, which I'm pretty sure is not for sale anymore. That adapter allowed you also connect it to a PC for software developers.
Yeah.
And that's gone away because now that technology kind of exists in the Intel RealSense systems, and they sell specific cameras for
Azure for Kinect or Kinect for Azure.
Yeah, there's Azure Kinect too, right? Yeah. And these are actually meant for that task. But I have that adapter somewhere. It's disgusting. It's a horrible,
a terrible adapter. You're not wrong.
It's heavy. Really it's got like 3 cables to it. It's just very ugly how it works. And if you want a clean system, it's just, pheesh. But I forgot what the actual you need to, because it needs HDMI in and a USB Type A. I thought, right? Is that how that works?
Adapter? No. The adapter needed. It had a special port for the connector plug into the adapter. Then the adapter itself plugged into a USB port. And it also needed its own power draw, I think.
Yeah, it did need its own power draw, yeah.
Which was ridiculous.
It was. It was pretty ugly. And I'm sorry. I have very clean minimalist setup systems, and I can't be bothered with that.
Someone's asking, the Office mobile apps get a lot of updates. Are they going to be the Office apps for Windows 10X? This is a really good question, and as far as I'm aware, the answer is no, which may surprise a lot of you. But I believe what Microsoft is planning for the Office UWP apps or the Office mobile apps is just to turn them into PWAs. So on Windows 10X right now, if you're somebody who can access it and run internal builds, the versions of Office that are pre-installed are the PWAs. They're just the PWAs in a web wrapper, and they log into Office Online, and you can use Word, PowerPoint, Excel that way. And they're technically UWPs because they're wrapped in a UWP app and are, air quotes, in the store or whatever. So yeah, I just have I believe the plan is just to turn the UWP apps into PWAs. I don't know if that'd be the case for actual desktop, but on Windows 10X itself, they are PWA apps.
Speaking of, I'm going to post this photo later on Twitter because it's not Instagram worthy. It's not worth it for the gram. When we were, I went to this really awesome barbecue restaurant in Vegas called Smokehouse or something like that. It was amazing, by the way. I had, because I'm getting hungry, I'm just going to say this. I had a wrap that was, in the wrap was mac and cheese with shredded cheese and brisket and barbecue sauce. It was insanely amazing. Anyway, the reason I brought that up, they had a poster on the wall saying, hey, visit our restaurant with our new app. It's available. I think it was an app. I actually have the picture. But they actually had a logo saying it's Progressive Web Certified, and that their site is a Progressive Web app, which I've never, Dan and I were both like, we'd never seen anyone advertising
You
their
should be
website.
like, oh, you got the poires as well?
The poire? You down with the poire? Yeah. But it goes to show you that how this stuff is kind of really catching on, and Microsoft's still really excited about it. There'll be some news around that stuff, I think, this year.
A couple more questions. Any thoughts on the articles regarding the store going away? Now, to clarify that question, what that person is referring to is a report that Mary Jo Foley wrote earlier today, which suggests that the Windows Store for Business will be closing down. That is not the same as the Microsoft Store, just to keep that in everyone's head. The Windows Store for Business is a version of the Microsoft Store app that businesses can use to put their own apps there. So, you know, if you're an enterprise who has 100,000 employees and every PC that you give out to that employee needs to have a certain set of apps, you can have a Microsoft Store for Business where, you know, the Windows checks the Microsoft Store, pulls in those apps that are required based on your enterprise, and installs them and updates them and stuff. And the user can go into that store. There's a dedicated tab in the navigation for that enterprise where you can go and see the apps that you need and whatnot as well. That is apparently going away. I don't know why or care, to be honest, why it's going away.
I think this is, again, part of more related to mobile and phones going away, because that was one avenue, was the idea you would have these phones that were deployed by your company, and then they would have these UWP apps that were also in that store. And one thing we also know about the store that's changing with the new app model and all this is Microsoft is getting a little bit away from the walled garden, allowing companies to host. You could always kind of host your stuff on a web and download things that way, but that's sort of becoming the norm. I'd also say companies, you know, if you have an IT device, it's managed, you deploy the apps yourself to other devices, so you don't really need the user to go to a store. But yeah, I mean,
a lot of people are saying that this news is just the beginning of the end for the Microsoft Store itself. I would be very, very, very surprised if the Microsoft Store, for just the general Microsoft Store, goes away at some point, because even if it's not a successful storefront, it's still a place to go and download apps. Like, a lot of the big apps are in there now. Most of them are, in fact. The only ones that aren't are more sort of power apps and browsers and stuff. But Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, any app that you would really want to use on a PC, Office,
a lot of PC games now.
Games, that most of the stuff is in there, and it's just a safer way to download apps. Now, I'm not saying that the Microsoft Store. I'm not saying Microsoft's goal is to have the Microsoft Store be the place where you get every single app on PC. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense for it to go away. It's one of those features or one of those things in Windows that makes sense as an option. It doesn't have to be mandatory, and it doesn't have to not exist. It's good. It's good to be there, and that's fine. You know,
I think it's also good for, especially for Xbox, because you still need a store for getting your games.
Xbox will, exactly. Like,
and
a lot
also
of things feed through there.
Yeah, video for renting movies, which, from what I understand, I don't know the numbers on it, but from what I understand, people do rent movies on the Xbox, which I think makes sense. I buy a ton of movies on Xbox too. But yeah, who knows? I don't think the store metrics are amazing. I think Zach and I will both agree there. But it does serve a purpose. It's also a place where they can put hardware, right? So
Yeah.
they have their
They can
deals.
sell your Microsoft stuff through the Microsoft store.
Yep. Like now I can download Flirt the game for $1. Online play.
Outlook and PowerPoint. Sorry, I'm trying to read this question. Outlook and PowerPoint app on Windows 10 X screenshots on Neowin look very different from the current web app. Also very different from the UWP version of the Win32 version. Thoughts? I believe they are just mock-ups. What you saw there. They are not the real apps because they are drawn because they're not real. Yeah,
What
I'm
if
pretty
we're
sure
not
they were.
real?
I'm pretty sure they were just concepts. Okay, so I've seen the Office apps on Windows 10 X, and I can tell you right now they are just the PWAs for now. Mail and Calendar are the exceptions. Microsoft is actually rewriting the Mail and Calendar apps with React Native, which takes the web apps and makes them use native elements that are part of Windows. The PWA apps for Office aren't currently doing that, but maybe they will by the time they ship. But I've seen what I've seen from Word and PowerPoint stuff. They are just literally the web apps, but they could be rewritten with React Native by the time Windows Next ships. I don't know. But Outlook and Calendar, or Mail and Calendar, as I guess they're called, they are React Native and have been rewritten. So they've taken the website, made them use native controls that are part of Windows, and so it feels and acts much more like a native app, even though it's based on the website. And I assume, I don't know if this is true, but I assume the same will happen for Word, PowerPoint, Excel. OneNote, for some reason, is a true UWP app, and I think that will continue to be the case. Any chance Windows Next will be installable on the Surface Pro X? I highly doubt it. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. You got anything else, Dan?
I don't believe so.
Any news about Cortana and Android Outlook? Nothing specific. I know it's been worked on and it's coming along. I think we might hear about it in the next few weeks.
It's being developed. It's in their internal builds.
Yeah.
But I think they said early 2020 sometimes, so we still have time there. But it's happening. It's there. I do use it on occasion. I don't use it as much as I should on my iOS version. But it's neat. I kind of like it. I still want to see more AI throughout stuff. But
Yeah.
Slow process.
Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. We'll see you there.